I'll never go to this resort again. Mainly because of the horrific things that happened there a couple of days prior. I should probably start by explaining all the events that led up to this. It all started one day when, as you can imagine, I was basically trying to avoid the stress of lockdown, so I had already booked a holiday which I was going to go on. It was nothing special, just a regular holiday, a couple of interesting beach tours and some other interesting stuff as well. It was one day, however, when I was walking across the beach that something interesting happened. It was a normal day at first. I was walking around the beach and the sun was beginning to set. This meant that some people had already begun to pack up. That being said, there were the odd few people around, but they were mainly just really far away. I think I even saw 2 kids playing in the water, which was probably a little bit dangerous considering the tide was beginning to come in. However, I wasn't done exploring yet either. After a while of walking around the beach and just doing none other than looking at a small forest that seemingly led into another part of the beach, I decided that I should probably get back, especially considering the fact that it was almost nighttime already. So after I noticed that it was beginning to get darker, I then decided to gradually make my way back. That being said, there were of course some other people staying behind, but I figured they were going to go eventually. And to my surprise, they all started going a little bit earlier, just after I got onto the actual site. However, there was one person that I noticed was still there. I could see them in the distance, ever so slightly. Now, that being said, the smallest thing could have thrown me off, but it was when I saw it that I began to question it. Why was there a person standing there? Shouldn't they be going back now? I mean, the tide's coming in, and I'm pretty sure it's getting super late. But the guy just kept standing there, looking outwards. It was then that he unexpectedly turned towards me. Now, I was puzzled at first, maybe thinking, he must be drunk, and obviously that would explain the weird stuff that's happening right now. But he didn't act drunk. He gradually made his way closer and closer to the part where the exit of the beach was, and led up to the actual site. I noticed that he was walking with long, exaggerated steps, like a cartoon character. Except, for every step that he took, he seemingly got more wobbly, as if he had some real trouble standing up on his own 2 legs. Now, in this situation, a lot of people would have different opinions on what to say or what to do. Most of you guys, I'm probably guessing, would say, why didn't you just leave? And yes, I know, that does sound like a more logical answer. But, even though that was the main choice that probably would have been the best in the situation, I decided that I would help him. I mean, my genuine reaction when I see someone in a bit of trouble is to help him out in any way possible. I don't know why I'm like that, but hey, I guess that's just what some people are like in general. As I gradually got close enough to help him out, and back on his own 2 feet, he began to slightly brush past me, and ever so slightly pushed me away. Now, I took this as a no thank you, I wouldn't like any help situation. But bear in mind, the guy at first glance looked like he was either on something or possibly drunk. However, there was my slight suspicion that maybe he wasn't on something, and maybe he's just genuinely insane or something like that. But even then, I didn't want to find out on the news or anything else later on that someone had been murdered and a dead body was found on the beach. That just wasn't how I was going to do things. So, I went up to him and tried to ask him again if he would like any help or if I could do anything. And then he turns around and gives me this piercing stare. It still chills me to remember what his expression was like. His teeth were like a dog's, quite sharp and very menacing. And also, his eyes, they were perhaps the creepiest part of him, considering his eyes were hollow, in the sense that you could see through them, into his eye sockets. But what thrilled me even more is the words he said after. "Don't lay a finger on me, I'll be fine." And then he walked away, never to be seen again. Now, as I said, I don't know if this person was on something or perhaps crazy in some ways. But for every time that I remember this strange and weird encounter, I think about where he went and if he was even real. And perhaps the thing that scares me the most is, as I said, he may have very well just been insane. And that is something you don't want to encounter. Me and my friend decided to book a holiday resort one time. Now, as weird as it may seem, we were actually really old friends. We dated back to first school, as a matter of fact, and we wanted to do something really special. And that was, of course, go to the one hotel that had a nice beach, and actually, and rather surprisingly, we went there a lot of times as kids. So it was only natural we wanted to go back there again. We also brought one of our other friends along, Damien. Now, Damien was quiet, and throughout the entire plane ride, he never really spoke a word to us much. He was mainly on his phone texting his girlfriend, which was typical for him. But after a while of boring chatter, we eventually made it to the hotel, and it was nice, just how we remembered it. We were put in one of the higher rooms in the hotel, which means we had a balcony and we could easily view the beach anytime we wanted. Now, the beach itself was pretty big. It actually stretched out for miles, and you could see some pretty lights at night as well. Now, before anyone says anything, yes, I am aware that some beaches aren't exactly something to get worked up about, but in all honesty, it was nice to see it, you know? It's just that nostalgic feeling that you get once you haven't seen anything in a while. But anyway, I digress. After a while of taking in the view and getting some of the sea air, we eventually decided that we were going to hit the hay, especially considering the fact that it was beginning to get a little bit late. So, we all picked our beds that we were going to sleep in, and we naturally woke up the next morning, and the first thing we did was go to the beach. Now, that being said, nothing really eventful happened. It was just a normal day. That being said, there were a lot of annoying kids running around the place, but we couldn't really blame them. I mean, they were on a beach having fun after all. Nonetheless, we eventually got bored of being there and were about to leave. Also, not to mention the tide was coming in, and it was beginning to get a little bit dark outside. So, we made our way up back to the hotel and checked into our rooms again. Eventually, when we got up to the main room of the hotel, Damien went out on the balcony. Now, everything was normal. I was just chatting to my friend, when all of a sudden, Damien blurted out that he sees something pretty disturbing. Naturally, we bolted to the balcony to see what he was looking at, and needless to say, we made it just in time. We saw someone dragging a sack along the beach. Now, at first we thought this could be anything, like a person cleaning the beach or something of that nature. However, he looked like he was having a lot of trouble with the sack, or bag, or whatever it was, because whatever he was dragging had a lot of weight, and that didn't seem like something normal for a person that should be cleaning up the beach. It was only when he turned around to look exactly at where we were that he pointed a finger directly at his throat and then slid it across, to symbolize the fact that he obviously wanted us dead for that. So, the logical thing we did was slowly walk backwards into the room and close the balcony doors. The strange thing, perhaps, is the next day, a person wearing what appeared to be a janitor's suit, or work attire, walked throughout one of our hallways, and we recognized his face. Instantly shutting the door, we decided that we were just gonna wait until he left. Eventually, he did leave, and we were left wondering what the hell he was trying to do. Damien came up with the idea that he probably wasn't going to play nice and suggested that we should just leave the resort. But I wasn't very convinced, nor was my friend. Also, we only had one day left of this vacation, then we were going to leave, so it's not like there was any point going back now. But that being said, if it was only going to be one day, and it potentially means we'll get out of here alive, then we would go. We packed our bags and left, and from then onwards, things were normal. As of now, I've got a family of my own, and everything's going pretty well. But this memory still haunts me. Now, believe me, I know it sounds silly, but there's just something about it that I can't get out of my head. Whether it was the sinister way he snuck his way into the hotel with that uniform. Goodness knows how he got it, though. Or even why he wanted me dead. Probably because he really was carrying a dead body. But I guess I'll never know. Until the next time. And I hope to never see that psycho again. I think it goes without saying I love the beach. Mostly throughout every holiday I've ever been on. It's always been there. More specifically, it's actually coming up to be my honeymoon, and I'm already waiting to go on another trip. My boyfriend, however, says that he is skeptical considering the fact that, well, it's not exactly the best to be traveling when coronavirus hit, but it's been a while, and we could definitely use a much-used break. Not to mention, he has been working pretty hard recently from home. So, he kind of deserves it, to be fair. It was only recently that we booked the hotel, and not to mention, I was very excited to go to the hotel in the first place, especially considering the fact that it had been a long while since I'd been anywhere for a vacation, as I said previously, and I think it goes without saying that a bit of mischief was bound to happen there as well. I mean, isn't it? It was only after a while of sitting on that damn plane that I was eventually hyper enough to get off, except I quickly realized that we were going to have to catch a bus if we wanted to get there even quicker. So, we got on the bus and waited. However, I wouldn't be lying if I said I had a bit of an uncomfortable bus ride. Obviously, my boyfriend was there, but it doesn't change the fact that there was also a couple of other people there that, in general, were giving me some funny looks. It was only after I got off that, eventually, we then went to the hotel, checked in, and from then onwards didn't really do much. I mean, that being said, we were both exhausted from the move, so we immediately mainly just got to sleep and didn't really do much else, as I stated previously. It was only the next morning when, eventually, we were energized enough to go to the beach that we actually got ready to go there. Now, as you can imagine, I wasn't really planning on doing much, to be fair, just having fun and, who knows, maybe going into the sea. Now, my boyfriend, on the other hand, wasn't a fan of going into the sea, mainly because he said, well, obviously he would just prefer to get back and maybe have a walk around the other sites. But I did question him a couple of times by saying, why isn't he interested to do it? And reluctantly, and rather funnily as a matter of fact, he eventually gave in, and we eventually just had a fun time at the beach. It was only after a while or so that eventually, after I'd say half an hour, things began to get a little bit late, and we decided we were going to go back to the hotel. We were walking up to the hotel when some strange guy then eventually brushed past me. Now, obviously it didn't really bother me considering I was walking with my boyfriend, so I doubt anyone would want to do anything. It was only when we got to our hotel room, however, that things were beginning to get a little bit creepy now. For starters, I noticed that the exact same guy that brushed past me before was walking up the exact same hallway. Now, I tried to explain this away by saying he was just going to his room, but it didn't help that he kind of saw me through the keyhole and began to stare. My boyfriend caught on to this and actually went outside to ask the guy what his problem was. Turns out that he had a elaborate excuse by saying that he was only wondering if we were okay. Needless to say, my boyfriend immediately dismissed it and said that we were fine and slammed the door in his face. Karma, I guess you could say. Eventually, we just got to sleep. It was only the next morning when things got worse, or at least progressively worse, even. We went to the beach again, because obviously it was fun last time, but this time we noticed that things were off. The guy was still there staring at me from a larger distance, but we could still make him out. So we reluctantly moved to a different part of the beach, and it was only a couple of minutes later that we found him in the exact same place, only a couple yards away looking at us. Needless to say, we left, but not without him getting a little bit too close for comfort first. But my boyfriend, being the awesome person he is, quickly intervened, already knowing that I feel very uncomfortable with the look I have on my face. We eventually made it back to our hotel room, and I, being visibly upset a little bit, my boyfriend began to ask me if I was okay, and I said that obviously I wasn't because of that weird guy looking at me all the time. We eventually decided that we were going to leave. After all, it was time to leave anyway, considering this was our last day. We packed up everything and began to leave, but not without seeing that crazy guy for one last time. Noticeably, I gave him the finger and told him to, with my mouth, fuck off, and he did. I don't know if I'll ever see that guy again, but I hope to God I don't. Hello everyone, welcome, and thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you obviously like the content you saw here, please be sure to tell me in the comments below. I make many scary stories, and I would love for you guys to give me some criticism in the comments, because it helps. It really does. Also, as you notice, I've got a new background. It's a beach. I mean, it fits the story, so I thought I'd put it in there. So yeah, this is the background for this video, and tell me if you like it, by the way. I also do a lot of these weird background things, so yeah. But anyways, that's all I really wanted to say. Thanks for watching to the end. Really appreciate it. And yeah, these stories, found them off the Creepypasta wiki and stuff like that, and I just hope you enjoy them. So yeah, but thanks for watching. Please be sure to subscribe if you like the content, and who knows, I might do a couple more beach stories. Or not. As I said, it all depends. But anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.